They say revenge is best enjoyed cold, but in my profession, it arrives best in a stifling banquet hall, with the food service cut off entirely. Half a decade ago, the man I adored tore my world apart, seized control of my company, and left me drowning in crushing debt. Now he strolled straight into my snare by reserving his extravagant wedding at my upscale resort, having no clue that I was the sole proprietor of the entire property. I am Clara Vance, and I constructed the Meridian Crest Resort from nothing after my former existence collapsed. My office sits above a breathtaking glass atrium along the Florida shoreline, where affluent guests drop fortunes to feel significant. It was a hectic Tuesday when my events coordinator entered, clutching a thick corporate binder and wearing a troubled look. A shell company wanted to reserve an exclusive buyout for a grand wedding across the holiday weekend. Scanning through the internal documents, my veins turned to ice the moment I recognized the couple's names. The groom was Weston Gable, my former fiance who had quietly emptied our joint accounts and left me for his younger intern years before. He assumed he had wiped me clean from his flawless new existence. My coordinator questioned whether we should decline the reservation, since she was aware of a fragment of my difficult past. I gazed out at my magnificent property and felt a shadowy satisfaction settle over me. I instructed her to confirm the contract without delay and prepare our priciest welcome package. A particular provision in our policies permitted me to cancel any function without issuing a refund. A fortnight later, the joyful pair showed up for their formal venue tour to finalize arrangements. I dressed in a plain staff uniform, attached a simple name badge, and positioned myself in the main ballroom. Weston entered barking into his phone, appearing every bit the self-important man who had cast me aside. Next to him stood Savannah, his new fiancée, exuding a poisonous and entitled aura. Savannah griped about the gorgeous Italian curtains and insisted they be entirely draped over because they struck her as gloomy. Weston never even glanced my way as his eyes swept past me, treating service staff as though invisible. I softened my voice and posed as an ordinary logistics assistant while jotting down their outrageous requests. They mistreated my junior team throughout the entire session. Things boiled over when Savannah flung a heavy silver fork onto the table with a sharp clatter. She barked that the table setting seemed messy and insisted guests reuse a single fork across multiple courses. When I politely noted this would create confusion for the kitchen team, she spun toward me and declared my sole purpose was hauling furniture. Weston merely exhaled and told me to comply with whatever she wanted. Once they departed, I convened with my senior lawyer upstairs to examine the executed contract. We uncovered that the deposit check bore the signature of Weston's corporate accountant, who turned out to be his former mistress. He was funneling investor money into his personal wedding while disguising it as a business retreat. This fraud gave me solid legal grounds to void everything, yet I craved a complete and total defeat for him. My lawyer urged me to dispatch the cancellation notice at once to sidestep future legal trouble. I told him I wanted Weston to openly breach venue policy during the actual ceremony instead. Canceling now would let him play victim and simply book another upscale hotel nearby. I needed his own ego to bring him down while everyone watched. Wedding day dawned with brutal coastal humidity and simmering tension behind the scenes. The ballroom appeared magnificent, white orchids dangling from the ceiling, and a live jazz trio playing gently. I slipped into a sleek charcoal jumpsuit and stationed myself near the bar, observing the affluent crowd socialize. Weston was already tipsy on pricey scotch, laughing boisterously with companions while Savannah supervised the photographer's shots. During appetizers, an aging housekeeper named Maria brushed too close to Savannah's enormous gown while balancing a heavy tray. Savannah recoiled with disgust and shrieked that the staff were pests, nearly ruining her costly dress. Maria lowered her head and apologized repeatedly, but Savannah kept hurling abuse at her. Cold fury surged through me because my staff were my family by choice. Moments later, Savannah spotted me seated briefly at a vacant table sampling the appetizer quality. She stormed over with contempt, snatched the plate from my grip, and told me staff belonged in the kitchen. Weston stood close and studied my face for an instant, but his drunken haze kept him from recognizing me. Savannah shoved my plate at a passing waiter and demanded he discard it. I rose slowly, folded my napkin with precision, and decided the moment for pure chaos had arrived. I exited the ballroom and directed my manager to trigger Emergency Protocol 0 right away. Entering the busy kitchen, I ordered every chef to kill the ovens and lay down their tools. The main course was officially scrapped, and I told my grateful staff to feast on the wedding meal themselves. I retreated to my office and used the building's smart system to cut power to the ballroom's air conditioning entirely. The evening was scorching, and 200 bodies packed into that room would turn it into a sauna within moments. I also had security halt the valet service and haul every guest vehicle straight to the front entrance. I watched through the ballroom cameras as the wealthy crowd started sweating heavily. Below, Savannah stood at the mic delivering a toast while guests fanned themselves frantically with menus. She boasted loudly about how Weston had escaped former business partners who lacked his ambitious vision. She mocked his past openly, calling it beneath her elevated tax bracket. Just as she lifted her glass to toast, the microphone cut out completely and the music halted. Guests grew anxious over the heat and the absent food, while the kitchen stayed dark and silent. My manager approached the head table and murmured that the owner requested Weston's presence in the courtyard. Weston hurled his napkin down and stormed outside, bellowing threats to fire every employee in sight. I waited by the stone fountain, illuminated by the soft glow of gas lanterns. The instant Weston saw my face beneath the lantern light, he froze mid-breath, jaw hanging open in shock. He stuttered my name in pure disbelief and demanded to know why I was there. I stepped closer and told him plainly that I didn't work there. I owned every single brick of the place. He tried laughing it off, accusing me of being a bitter ex ruining his celebration out of jealousy. I laid out the corporate fraud policy and reminded him his new bride had just insulted the resort's actual owner. Savannah then stormed into the courtyard, drenched in sweat with makeup streaking down her face. She screamed at Weston for conversing with the help until he weakly confessed that I owned the entire hotel. Savannah went rigid with shock as I extended the official eviction notice toward them. I gave them 10 minutes to vacate before police arrived to arrest them for trespassing. Security calmly escorted their bewildered guests toward the driveway, where luggage already sat stacked at the curb. A well-known social media influencer filmed the whole spectacle on her phone as Savannah wept uncontrollably. Weston hung his head in utter defeat and hauled his bags into the muggy darkness. That night, we cracked open the top-shelf liquor for the staff, celebrating our triumph inside the commercial kitchen. By morning, the footage had gone viral with millions of views, sending our bookings soaring by 400%. I sat on my balcony gazing at the ocean, knowing the past had finally been laid to rest. The kitchen is where the knives live, and we absolutely knew how to wield them.